Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to the Cove Data Protection Automating Deployment Bootcamp. My name is Eric Harless, your head backup nerd here at Enable, and I see we've got a few folks that are still getting logged into the system here, so we'll give them a chance to get connected while we do a little bit of our housekeeping today. During this session, we may talk about features or functions that are not yet generally available in product. If we do that, I'll do my best to preface anything as that is not currently generally available as a forward-looking statement. We want to make sure that we keep our lawyers happy with all of those components. Bear with me a second. It's not changing screens for some reason. Let's see, 1 second here, folks. Let me get to the right screen share. Maybe I'm doing the wrong monitor. Let me do a quick audience check here really quick. Can you guys confirm that you're seeing the Cove Data Protection Automating Deployment slide on your screen and that you're hearing me coming through the mic or the speakers clearly? Just a quick comment in the question section would be great. And we'll do a slide change. Okay, now the slides are changing. Good deal. Okay, thank you for that, guys. Okay, so as I was saying, welcome to the Cove Data Protection Automating Deployment Bootcamp. My name is Eric Harless, head backup nerd here at Enable. We've got a good hour to hour and a half worth of content today, depending on questions and inquiries. Feel free to drop questions and comments into the question section of GoToWebinar as we go through the session. We may talk about features, functions, or futures that are not currently available inside of the product, something that's in an alpha, beta, or concept state. Please don't make any licensing or purchasing decisions based on features or functions that are not yet generally available. I'll do my best through the session today as we talk about things like that to preface those as forward-looking statements. All the attendees today are on mute, and it's not because I don't want to hear from you. It is so we can get a good recording of this bootcamp to post to our Enable University inside of the enable.me portal. So if you have any audio or video questions or any questions for that matter at all, feel free to drop those into the question section of GoToWebinar. I will keep an eye on those and blend those into the presentation today where appropriate. And if they are outside of scope or outside of topic, I may defer those to post-session or reach out to you directly. I will also give you guys a QR code today where you can schedule some one-on-one nerd time should you have additional queries or questions that you may want to bring up, once again, related to this or even outside of scope, okay? As I said, the session is being recorded, so questions are still very, very important. It makes these interactive, so feel free to drop those in at any point, and I will do my best to get them addressed. For those of you who have not met before, as I said, my name is Eric Harless. I am official title here at Enable is head backup nerd. I've been with the organization now working on Enable's backup products for the last 11, almost 12 years now. In the data protection space for the last 25 plus, getting close to 30. Mixture of roles, sales, support, system engineering, product management has been the majority of my career. In fact, my first 6 years here at Enable were working on the Cove products as a product manager. And then, of course, the last stint here in this head nerd role. The goal with the nerd role is to help grow or build out a community, be your product and or technical evangelist, find and or cultivate like-minded backup gurus and backup nerds to help support and grow that channel. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, feel free to drop me an email. It's eric.harless@n-able.com. You can also follow me on Twitter or X at backup_nerd. You can also find me out there on the Slack channel or the various Facebook groups and so on. So once again, feel free to reach out and connect. Our agenda today, we've done our introductions. We're going to kick into deployment here momentarily. We do have time for Q&A at the end of the session, assuming that they're not all coming in during the session and I'm not peppering them into the presentation. And then I will do some quick wrap up with some next steps and some additional resources. The deployment section today, some key topics we're going to cover are your deployment options. Those have recently changed with our releases in 2025. So we've expanded our deployment capabilities, simplified them in some places, consolidated them in others. but I'll go through those details and how that may impact you. We'll also look at managed versus self-managed encryption keys, how to do reinstallation, installation, looks like a typo there, automated deployment, manual deployment. We'll look at the various parameters that you can pass to the installation strings, how you can convert your private encryption keys or your zero knowledge keys into managed keys that are controlled by the platform. We'll look at some scripted deployments and some scripted resources out there that you can utilize with your enable RMMs or third-party RMM tools to do deployments. And then we'll talk a little bit about troubleshooting and resources available to you, followed up by those QA and those next steps, okay? I do want to keep it informal though, so if there are questions, we may deviate from that particular structure a little bit from an order perspective. I do have live demonstration environments up here as well, so we can get into an environment and actually go look at where the log files are stored, or uninstall and reinstall if there's a question around those kind of things. I don't want to bore anybody with just watching a software download and reinstall. I'd rather get into the meat of a script or a function, or how do we integrate this with a Ninja or an Insight or a ConnectWise or somebody else's deployment methodologies. A lot of the wrappers that I'm going to talk about today are going to be PowerShell based wrappers. Work really, really nice on a Windows system, although the functionality could be performed with a bash or a shell script on a Linux or a Mac platform. Okay, so from a demonstration perspective, we'll be doing, like I said, doing live demos throughout the session with some slides to help support or back those. We're going to start with our deployment options for Cove Data Protection. In 2025, we've rolled out what we call a unified installation flow. The unified installation flow basically took three different disparate deployment mechanisms. One's for our documents deployment, one for our legacy private key encryption, and one for our automatic deployment, which is system managed encryption keys with profiles and retention policies built into them, and combine them into a single GUI or a single wizard workflow. So if you hit the add device button on your Cove dashboard, you're going to get presented with something like what we see here on the right, an add server or workstation wizard. And it's combined together some of the newer enhancements we've made. So you can you can specify the customer which you want to do your installation at. So you'll hit a drop down here in the customer list or add a new customer to your partner tree. You can then pick a retention policy, formerly known as products, that controls the retention, effectively a grandfather, father, son style of retention for your backup devices. And then finally, the profile, which is an optional setting, controls your selections and your exclusions and your schedules. So at time of deployment, you can build an installation package that will specify customer, retention, selections and exclusions, and schedule for a given Windows, Mac, or Linux system. Almost set it and forget it at this point, okay? Like I said, a site-specific installation package. The retention policy or product is built into it at time of deployment, so no reason to go back and change it after the fact. It's going to help you prevent duplicate installations as well, because these installation packages are designed not to reinstall or overwrite an existing installation if we find it. So anybody that's had any type of automated deployment capabilities with other third-party tools or products might have found that they had to write their own logic to prevent duplicate installations. The final set of pieces here are the encryption method. And there's two options. There's a managed encryption, where it's a system-generated passphrase that is controlled by the backup.management console. And that's our recommended deployment methodology. Or there is a self-managed option, which is a private key encryption. This is an encryption key that is controlled or created by you during the installation process. And you can use this either as a multi-use installer, or you can use it for a single-use installer. The difference between a multi-use and a single-use, in a multi-use case, we build the device name based on the computer's NetBIOS name, plus a underscore and a random 5-digit alphanumeric string. So this way we can control multiple servers on the same platform, or multiple workstations with very, very common names or even duplicate names. On the self-managed encryption side of the house, the ability to define your own device name is still a legacy option that comes back from our original ISO days, where you could create or define that name of the device. We still allow you to do that, but it would take it from a multi-use installer to a single-use installer, because you're going to specify that device name as part of this wizard. The second page to that wizard, when you hit submit, is going to give you the download link, the installation package name, and some base instructions and summary of what we've just created. So the download link is always downloading the latest generic installer binary for Mac, Windows, or Linux, depending on what you chose on the prior screen. But it's going to rename that file and embed in that a unique installation token. So this unique 36-character GUID or 36-character string is unique to those configurations that you made on the prior in the prior window. The settings you see at the top of the screen here. For example, customer backup nerd lab, retention policy, GFS 2.0, workstation silver for my profile, Windows operating system with a managed encryption key for multiple devices. So this installer, if I were to install it on one machine or 100 machines, it's going to turn around and create entries directly in the backup nerd lab container in the Cove console. It's going to take the net BIOS name of each of the machines you install this on and add it into the appropriate tenant structure and build the selections, build the schedule, build the exclusions, and start to run those backups. So you truly could deploy hundreds, if not thousands, of devices over the course of a weekend with a simple PowerShell script or the use of your RMM application. The self-managed installation here, let me see, I've got another slide for that one. If we're going through this self-managed option, in this case, we've entered a name, we called it optional _ device _ name, really unique there, right? That has an installation limit of a single device. So once we deploy this, still a single GUID designed for deploying that device, it's going to prompt you during the installation process. You'll get a GUI pop-up where it will ask you to enter and then verify the encryption key you want to assign to that device. And it's going to give you some prompts or some reminders to make sure you store that encryption key safely, just like you would passwords and domain logins, because it is not something that we maintain. It should be noted, however, that even though we don't keep or retain that encryption key, as long as the system is accessible, functioning, not encrypted, not ransomed, not broken, then we can always convert it to passphrase later through some administrative scripts and routines that we have, assuming you have access to the device. Anyway, these devices are going to show up automatically inside of the Cove console. Since we've named this device, it'll take on this exact named entry. If we had chosen to ignore entering a device name here, then it could have been a multi-use deployment for private key encryption. And during the installation process, it would have grabbed the net BIOS name, used that for the machine name, and still prompted you in the GUI for each installation to enter and validate that encryption key. If you know what encryption key you want to enter and you want to script or automate this one, it can also accept a silent installer parameter, -encryption -key, which will allow me to push out in bulk and still manage that private key or that zero knowledge approach to an encryption key. The file name itself, if we break that out here on the left-hand side a little bit, name, we're just looking at Cove here from a identifier perspective. We're using # as dividers. This is important. Some RMM and some deployment applications don't always like # in their installation packages. So there may be a routine where you need to escape those #. That's normally done through a double pound configuration. So a ## or a slash, / or \# depending on the different RMMs or deployment methodologies you're using. The version, that version number is unique to this new rollout structure. We are looking for an identifier of some sort within that field. It doesn't necessarily have to be V1, but it does have to be in that structure. Between the second and third set of pound signs is that installation token, that unique 36-character string that is going to be used to redeem this installer and allow that download and allow that installation process. And then finally, we've got a pound sign on the end, followed by the extension corresponding to the individual packages that we're working with here, whether it be a Mac, Windows, or a Linux device. Okay. One other thing to note here, there is currently a 30-day time to life on these installer packages, which should be fine for most manual installations, quick deployments, new customer onboardings, things of that nature. After that time period, that installer would expire, and it would require a new installer be generated through the GUI. We do have other installation methodologies that do not have a TTL. We are looking at expanding that one, making it user configurable at some point here in the near future. Until then, though, we'll talk about some of our other installation methodologies you might use for deployment from your RMM or setting up automated deployments that are going to be viable for many months. Reinstallation. The other unique functionality is that not only is this an installation package, it is also able to be used as a reinstallation package. So once we've deployed a device, ran backups on it, I can click on the device itself, go into my device properties page, and you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner here, I've got a few options when you hit these three dots. I have one of those is the ability to generate a passphrase. That's my reinstallation passphrase that I'm going to use for security purposes. And I have the ability to recover the device. When I choose recover device, I can download a installation package, just like the ones we were talking about a few minutes ago, for reinstalling this particular device on my choice of operating system in restore only or recover only mode, or in backup mode. And this is great if you're trying to perform a in-place restore onto a new piece of hardware. I'm going to migrate from a Dell laptop to an HP laptop, and I just want to reinstall the backup manager to restore some files back down. You know, this is not a bare metal recovery, it's not a virtualization, it's just reinstalling the backup manager in a very simple process, only requiring this installer and a single passphrase credential to get redeployed. Let me take you into the UI a little bit here so you guys can see a little bit of the examples for this. Here we are inside of backup.management. I'm in my HEH Computing IT MSP. Here's my backup nerd lab. We're going to go down into here. We can see a handful of devices that I have that are deployed. Let's hit add device, servers and workstations. And as you can see here, I can choose my customers or add additional customer or end customers or sites that I want to work with. I can choose my retention policy, and I've got several that are defined here, both new retention policies, which were rolled out mid last year, which give me that grandfather, father, son retention capability up to 10 year of annual backups. Or I can apply my legacy or classic retention policies, previously referred to as products. For example, the all-in product, which is a default 28-day retention model. The upper limit on a classic policy or a product is 1 year of base retention, and then you would utilize a secondary archive configuration to keep an end of week, end of month, end of year if you so choose. Although we do recommend you look at our new retention policies just for simplification of deployment and retention. The profile here, you can see I've got several of these server, workstation based, some with local speed vaults, bronze, silver, gold designations, good, better, best, if you will. If I have a profile in place, it is going to build the schedules, build the selections for me, build the exclusions. And as I said, those can all be managed from right here inside of this wizard. Choice of operating system, we'll go with Mac this time. We'll go with a managed key. And as you'll see here, I have a reference to my Cove installer with that unique GUID here in the center, .pkg, which would be my installer type for Mac OS. When I hit the download, you'll notice that the generic file name is listed in the lower left corner. We renamed that file on the download, and you'll get that unique installer here coming down that you're going to run directly on that Mac device. Since it is a generic installer every time, you can use scripting and automation to capture this installation package name and apply that to an existing installer you already have, or one you've already downloaded, or one that you've downloaded outside of the platform here at the end customer site or location. So you are not required to transfer this particular binary to that location. All you really need is that file name. There's an option here too to copy the instructions to your clipboard, which will take this device name, this configuration information, put it into your clipboard for the ability to drop it into an email if you like. Now, me adding devices or building configurations this way do not add any devices to the dashboard. It's only after I run the installer on the individual machines, are they going to check in and register their new entry here with a device name, then an operating system type, and then you'll see selected size and use storage as backup operations proceed. Let me see here. During an reinstallation, we are going to run that same installer package, and we are going to prompt you for a passphrase for that device. And as I said, the passphrase can be generated here on the device properties page by clicking the generate passphrase button, or I can click on settings inside of the UI and generate a passphrase there. So if we come in here, grab one of my 2012 R2 devices, come to settings, device name, installation key, and passphrase. These are also fairly important. We'll talk about these a little bit more as we're going through this. Device name, installation key, and passphrase are used as some of our legacy deployment methodologies and some of our scripted deployment methodologies. So the fact that those are still here under settings is convenience for you. There are no immediate plans to discontinue the legacy deployment models. We are looking to further expand and extend these new models before we'll end up pulling out into the older deployment methodologies. That generate passphrase up here, generate passphrase, here we have it, and the ability to copy that to my clipboard. That's going to be good for a single reinstallation or 24 hours. So let's talk about a couple of the command line examples that are out there. I'll be showing some scripts and some automation to you guys here a little bit later, where we talk about our automatic deployment installers. So automatic deployment was the prior generation of deployment methodology. So if you've had devices that have been deployed now for more than 3 months, you utilized automatic deployment to get those out there. And the deployment structure would have looked something like what we're seeing here. BM for backup manager with a pound divider, a GUID, which referenced a customer ID, followed by another pound divider and an extension, or possibly a profile ID followed by a pound, or a combination of profile ID and retention policy wrapped in pounds. So this particular chart here dictates a couple different configurations that we can support in an automatic installer string. We've just simplified that one quite a bit with this new workflow, so that we don't need to place all of these different variables inside of their own unique set of pound wrappers. We're doing all of this manipulation on the back end now and giving me a single GUID that would correspond to whichever profile ID or retention policy that were selected during the deployment. Customer ID, we pick the customer during deployment. Profile ID and retention policy, those are the 3 variables that are picked. They're just embedded in the database and then referenced with this installation token now. Once again, designed to make your life a little bit easier, reduce the amount of variables that you have to drop into a script or into a GUI after you've installed or try to do a reinstall. And then, of course, expanded out some functionality that didn't exist in some places as well. For example, we were very limited in what we could do in a Mac environment with .pkg when it came to assigning retention policies or some of the other various settings. The top here, this legacy automatic deployment methodology, it is still supported, but it is only good for installations. Whereas the new model down here is good for initial installations, private key encryption, and reinstallation of devices. One of the key differences between the two, however, the top automatic deployment methodology does not have a expiring time to life for the installer package. It is good indefinitely until you revoke the package. Whereas the new methodology at the bottom down here does have a 30-day time to life on the installation package, but as I said, we are looking to expand or extend that during the package creation process in the future. I want to throw out some other command line components, command line examples here. These are also legacy installation models. You know, in the automatic deployment structure, if you needed to redeploy or reinstall, we'd have had you download a generic installer, this MXB Windows x86, x64, or a Mac OS installer, or this Linux installer. And for these three packages, you would have passed along you know, various script parameters, whether it be silent installer, a partner UID, that 36-character customer UID that exists for the partner where you wish to do the installation, the profile name or profile ID or product name as components after the installer, and of course here limited to Windows and Linux only for a couple of these settings. This functionality is still available. It still exists for reinstallation of devices. Although we do, I'm sorry, for initial deployment and reinstallation of devices. Although it is not, like I said, as functional across all platforms and all operating systems. Manual installation, that legacy deployment for private key encryption. In this kind of structure, during a initial install or reinstallation, it was the exact same routine. You run the installer and you're presented with a GUI to enter your device name, your installation key, and your passphrase coming from the UI. Or you would have passed it as part of a command line parameter. As you see examples down here for Windows and Linux, not available on Mac. But the installer package, dash user, and the device name, dash password, and the installation key, and then dash passphrase followed by the passphrase or the encryption key that you're working with. And this could be used, as I said, for initial deployment or in some cases for reinstallation. But it required you to grab a couple different parameters, determine whether it was a passphrase or an encryption key, and then there just was not a common single solution that would work in all places, in this case for Mac OS. So while these still exist, and there are going to be automations and components that utilize these, you know, once again, not the best first approach for most of your new deployments. Command line parameters, though, are still viable. So, for example, that dash installation key, dash passphrase, those parameters can be used with even the new deployment installers that we are releasing. In addition, if you use proxies inside of your organization, you can pass various proxy credentials and parameters during that deployment process. Obviously, you need that proxy information for the backup manager to be able to get out through the network and access to the public cloud. So these parameters are here. You will still continue to see all of these settings available in our documentation. We'll be guiding you to the recommended methodologies and then having references to the legacy components. Now, I mentioned encryption quite a bit today. We talk about private key encryption, we talk about legacy encryption, private key encryption or system managed encryption. And these are all using an AES 256-bit encryption algorithm. We've been doing that since, I believe, 2017 by default. Before then, you would have had an option for an AES 128 or a Blowfish 512 module. We are actively looking, hashtag forward-looking statements, at a FIPS 140-3 compliant or compatible certified algorithm for future rollout as well. Obviously, forward-looking statements there. The data is encrypted on the local machine. It remains encrypted in motion and at rest, as well as data sent over a TLS 1.2, 1.3 tunnel from the device to remote storage, various storage nodes out in the enabled cloud. that data, since it is encrypted by the client device, has to be decrypted at some point during a recovery, during a reinstallation, and that's why we utilize that passphrase component. If you're doing private key encryption, then enable retains zero knowledge of your encryption key. So if you were to lose that encryption key, you're the equivalent of locking your keys in your car. I can't go check a file or pull a database or recreate that key for you. I don't have any way to recover your lost, damaged, or misdocumented encryption keys. So if you are going to utilize private key encryption, we do recommend that you document it and you test it on a regular basis. Now, if you do find out during one of your tests or while going through documentation, you don't have something listed as the private encryption key for a given device, we do have some options for you. As long as it has not yet been compromised, ransomed, encrypted, or had a hardware failure, if you can still get on as an admin onto that particular device and it can still connect to the enabled cloud, then we can convert it behind the scenes from a private key encryption device to a system managed passphrase device. It is a one-way single direction conversion, but that does beat not being able to restore your data. So I'll give you a quick QR code so you can learn more about that one here in a minute. But let me show you how you find out whether a device is private key encryption or system managed. If we go into the management console again, we'll close out my download section. Here we've got a list of devices. We come into columns right here, and we do a quick search for the passphrase column. It's I-82, and we'll go ahead and save that. That column should show up on the far right if it's not already turned on. And you can see here, passphrase yes, passphrase no. So this Windows 2003 box is using private key encryption, as is this archive test device. You'll notice if we look at the device name itself, it's a very basic name, W2003-01, not to be confused with this Windows 2012 R2-09 underscore ZBOXQ. So you can see there the random 5-digit extension that was added when we did an automatic deployment, and it used a passphrase enabled device. Now I could convert this W2003 device to passphrase based encryption. I'll show you guys how to do that in a second, but it is not going to rename the device. So it is this flag over here, passphrase yes or no, that truly tells you whether it is a system managed encrypted device or a private key device. For example, if I click on it and go into settings, you'll see here I have device name and installation key, but I have no option to generate a passphrase. If I hit my 3 dots up here, I have the ability to generate a reinstallation command for it, but I do not have the ability to generate a passphrase for the system. Okay. So how do we go about getting that particular passphrase or generating it so that I can get to a passphrase? I've got a couple different methodologies for you. I've got an automation policy, I've got a PowerShell script, I've got a command line methodology to convert the private key to a passphrase-based encryption device. I just showed you that passphrase column. It is a one-way conversion, as I mentioned. It's great if you've lost it or you incorrectly typed it into the system. You just need local administrator access to the machine, and you must do that conversion prior to a hardware failure or encryption or a ransom of that device. If you snap this QR code here in the upper right corner, that will take you to the documentation methodology for that conversion. I'm going to show off a quick script that can do that for you as well. We're going to utilize my GitHub right now. And we'll come into here and let's go to, I believe it is going to be security, convert to passphrase. This particular PowerShell script right here, I'll give you a link to this GitHub page a little bit later in the presentation as well, although you can see the URL up here as well. This particular script is designed to convert your private keys into passphrase. It's going to talk to the backup.management API. It's going to prompt you to enter your credentials for your Cove platform. It needs your customer name as it exists in the topmost center of your dashboard. It needs your email address or API enabled username. and your login password. Once you've provided those 3 items, it will look up the device where you're running the script. Based on the current log files, it'll grab that device name, it'll query that against the database in the cloud, request the appropriate customer GUID and a few other settings, and trigger that conversion on the local device. So you'd run this script from each individual machine you wish to convert with your Cove credentials, and it'll do that conversion behind the scenes. I do have convert to passphrase automation policies here as well. This is designed to do that same conversion as an automation policy inside of our Enable Insight or Enable Incentral RMMs. You would provide your credentials to Cove and then run this automation policy in bulk across 1 or more devices, and it would do that conversion for you independently behind the scenes. If we look at the PowerShell script on this one, documentation, let's see, column codes, new devices, remote commands. I wanted to see if I could find bulk set convert to. There we go. Sorry, wrong one. Right here. This is the documentation link. We'll grab it really quick. For the convert to passphrase. So it talks through the details as I've mentioned them. Down here, it's going to show a couple of the example scripts or commands that we would utilize. It's going to leverage the client tool, which is a command line utility in the backup manager directory, providing a takeover with the partner UID, that's the customer UID from your management console, and the path to the config.ini file. So from your perspective, you're going to inject just this customer UID right here for a given device. Where would I get that customer UID? Well, if you go back to your backup.management dashboard, come in here to go to customers, and you'll get a list of all of your customers inside of the organization. It is this customer UID that exists right over here, which can be copied to your clipboard that is used as part of that conversion. It's the same UID used during a deployment string with our legacy automated deployment. So sample scripts, and I jumped the gun a little bit on this one. Obviously, sample scripts are here for you for deployments. You know, if I could maybe get a quick raise of hands or some comments in the question section. I'm curious, what RMM tools do you guys utilize out there? Give me just a quick comment in the question section if you'd like to chime in on this one. I know we're going to have some Enable Insights and some Incentrals. Do we have any ConnectWise? Do we have any Datto RMM? Do we have any Ninja? Do we have any Synchro or Atera out there? Let me know what you guys are using. The scripts that I've talked about here from a deployment perspective are standard PowerShell scripts, so that will work with most of the RMMs that are out there. For the ones that don't utilize a straight PowerShell or have their own scripting languages, I do have some examples that work with those as well. So I'll take those and show them here in just a moment. As with any scripts though, Enable doesn't officially support these through our support department. So if you have questions, comments, or concerns on those, I would recommend you schedule some time with me. Let me know what it is you're working on, how you try to utilize the script or the deployment, what your ultimate goals are as far as is it a quick down and dirty deployment, or do you want very customized deploy, redeploy, and automation. Scripted deployments are available. You can hit the QR code in the upper right-hand corner here. There is a link to the Enable Automation Cookbook. This is a script repository that we post on the Enable site. I link to my prototypes page on GitHub, github.com/backupnerd. There are also command line installer documentation. It's available here. That link if you want to grab a quick screenshot of that. And then of course sample scripts that are out there both in PowerShell, Bash, and in automation policies to do things like deploy, upgrade, reinstall, uninstall, convert to passphrase we just talked about, to set or change a device alias, to apply or update profiles after deployment. To adjust your products or your retention policies, to set throttles, or even turn on or expire archives. So there's lots of different scripts and automations out there that can help you truly deploy these in a set it and forget it type of mentality, so that you don't have to go back and touch a device to make changes after the fact. If I hit that GitHub page just one more time here, oops. Let's see, there we go. On the main root here, you're going to see billing usage, bootcamp samples, client tool, continuity, deployment. So this is a great one right here. Deployment, I've got deployment scripts for data RMM, for Kaseya VSA, Linux, enable automation policies for convert to passphrase, documents full agent deployments, documented guides for both Incentral and Insight deployment, how to redeploy with your installation key, your encryption key, and your device name, so with credentials. How to store and redeploy with stored credentials that are maintained or stored on the local machine. How to store those credentials in bulk, uninstallation or upgrade commands. So lots of different automation policies out there. All of these individual scripts or automations exist as well as part of my Windows auto redeploy or auto deploy scripts or single line scripts. Some of the larger ones here are going to give you a lot of functionality. So for example, here we could do auto deploy, redeploy, reuse, copy, force upgrades or force removals, or force installations, test installs. Here, so lots of variables you can work with in very complex scripts, or very simple single line scripts. So here's a Windows auto deploy single line. So it's going to give you the variables you need: a customer UID, a optional profile ID, and an optional product name in this case, so a case-sensitive product name. And you can see here there's a single line string down here where we set a UID variable, a profile ID variable, and a product name. And that performs a generic download of our installer, a proper rename into that BM pound GUID pound profile ID type of structure. So these can be used for, like I said, lots of different RMMs and tools out there. I'll pick on Ninja because I've used this recently with partners. Documentation on how to deploy from inside of Ninja, setting variables, passing variables from their UI into Cove, and vice versa. And then, of course, some scripted examples here, the variables I'm working with, and then 3 separate examples of deployment inside of Ninja. One where we're pulling lots of custom properties from the Ninja UI and dropping those into a single line deployment script. Others where we've pulling some variables, hard coding others in that, and then finally a fully hard coded deployment engine that can be used with the likes of Ninja or others. Yeah, deploy. So it's just a quick question here. So yeah, deployment through a Terra is possible there. Standard PowerShell deployment. Like I said, Ninja, Synchro, ConnectWise, Data RMM, Autotask, Kaseya VSA, Continuum, both Enable Inside and Incentral. If you've got other third-party tools, or you wanted to deploy through a Jamf or an Intune or something like that, then yes, these same kind of installers could work for those environments as well. Things to be wary of, I think I mentioned this earlier, is sometimes the special characters like a pound sign in the installer name may not like your particular installation methodology, and you'll need to figure out how to escape special characters that they utilize for variables or as offset. I do want to introduce a new portal. I mentioned a prototype GitHub page and our Enable Automation Cookbook. We are actively moving everything over into our Enable Developer Portal. This is in pre-release right now, so you guys are one of the first few to learn about this one. The Enable Developer Portal is going to have API documentation, API code snippets or samples in multiple languages. It's going to have sample scripts or recipes, as well as API examples, both the API calls and the response calls. So it is a great resource. It's being expanded out right now. I think it's got billing and usage platform for our prototype billing API in it right now, as well as a handful of cookbook or recipes that I've introduced from the automation cookbook and from the GitHub page. I will be expanding this out as we get toward a GA date with it here over the next few weeks to month. So this will be your ideal go-to place in the future for anything that is a tried and tested script or automation. Okay. Let's see here if there's anything I missed from a demo perspective. I want to check my questions really quick as well. Yeah, I can definitely show. So there was a question, can I show off an actual deploy? Yeah, I can definitely do a deploy here with this. We will need to do a quick removal or an uninstall. So let's do start programs, add remove. Get my task manager up here at the same time while I'm at it. So the process controller is part of what's the backup manager right now, as well as this backup FP process that is here. So we are going to click this guy and do an uninstall. Do a quick authorization here so I can do this uninstallation. And I just don't have to multi-factor as well. Okay, so we can see now backup IP. It's my backup installation processor is doing the uninstall. We'd see a client tool show up here at some point during the uninstallation process. Ultimately, the backup FP is going to go away once it's finished uninstalling, and we'll see the process controller, which is that watchdog that controls the service. That'll go away as well once the uninstall completes. And since we're going to be running a new installation, I'm going to go ahead and re-authenticate so that I can do my redeployment. Process controller. It's getting there. Let's see, backup IP, backup FP, process controller. Okay, both process controller and backup FP are gone. Backup IP should exit here momentarily. Installation processor has not completely shut down just yet. Let me see if I have a pop-up sitting someplace. I don't believe so. Okay. Now the backup installation processor is gone. Let's just navigate out of this and come back. And we should see that the backup manager is no longer installed on the system. Okay, so no backup manager in place now. With that in mind, let's hit my management console. And we want to do a new deployment. inside of my Nerd Lab, add a device, server workstation. We'll do private key encryption on this one. So let's go with workstation bronze, backup Nerd Lab, it's a Windows device, self-managed. We'll call this test bootcamp device. Next. We'll download the installation package. So here's my unique installer. And I'm finished with this process here. I just need this file once it finishes. Uh, 163 megs. We'll give it a second to finish its validation. And we'll go ahead and open that file. I am running as administrator now, so I should not be prompted a whole lot for authentication. And let's check our running processes now. We see our Cove installer right here. It runs a secondary copy of this. So there'll be two instances of this particular application during the installation phase. We'll see our client tool.exe is my command line utility. It's part of that installation. Encryption key communication. So dealing with encryption key management. I got a pop-up on my screen here for me to enter my encryption key and confirm my encryption key. We do require the following. So let's see here, at least one non-alphanumeric character, at pound, $%, asterisk, quote, question mark, or semicolon. Be aware that may not be the exact same alphanumeric, non-alphanumeric character set that all password managers utilize. So you may want to take note of that if you're using third-party generators. But in this case, we're going to go with something interesting here. Let's do got a match. And okay, so encryption key was created. We have the ability to copy this now and store it someplace else if we like. So we'll go ahead and copy that into my keyboard buffer, and we'll hit finish. This new backup manager should be coming up here momentarily. We'll see the backup FP process start, and we'll see that backup service controller start as well. Yep, I saw the process controller, backup FP. The Cove installers have gone away, and now we can start the backup manager, hopefully. So new installation, we're gonna have a clean interface here as far as calendar goes. We click on the word backup manager, we can see the retention policy that was applied, the profile that was applied to this, the latest and greatest client version. The machine name is enable-5WJ, although since we did private key encryption with a private device, it is my test bootcamp device. So we've given that private key deployment, a simple process with just a single variable that I had to drop in at time of deploy. The other thing that I could have done is I could have dropped to a command prompt and utilized that dash passphrase parameter, ran the installer dash passphrase, or I'm sorry, dash encryption dash key, my bad, dash encryption dash key, and specify that encryption key as part of my command line. So it could be fully done with the command line, which would work really nice on through PowerShell or in the terminal on both a Linux or a Mac device. I showed off a little bit of the troubleshooting or the process components while we were doing that. So we had backup IP or client-tool.exe. Those are going to be visible during the installation and uninstall processes. Backup FP, or what we refer to as the functional process, while backup is installed and they're running. The service is controlled by the service name is the backup service controller, which is the functional process the process controller watchdog. Your log files are stored in the C program data MXB folder. There's a backup manager directory, a log directory, and then broken out logs per individual function, whether it be client tool or backup FP or backup IP. And then if there are errors during installation, for example, during an install, here we're installing the 24.12 version, redeem device failed, see client tool log. In scenarios like that, we need to just pull that particular log file up, and we can see what happened during those installations. So let's see, we got install wizard, installation redeemed, failed to reconfig. Going up here, these all look good. Here we can see executing with the following commands. We can see the installation of the device. Up here we can see some failures. So we had an installation with an error here. Installation redeemed failed. No usage left for this installation token. So we've reached a maximum installation count, or I've already used that installer previously. So it'll give you details as to what's going on in a failed install. Assuming that you actually get connectivity to the cloud. If there is no cloud connectivity, you're not going to see a lot of those processes come into play. You'll get something along the lines of a invalid security token, broken TLS connections, things like that. So you'll start by checking your firewalls, your AV, to see if things being blocked. But at the point here, this is just going to be purely a credentials type of error. One of the command line components, I mentioned the client tool a few times as well. Client tool is a command line interface for the backup.management, for the local backup manager UI. Just a little sneak peek here. We talk more about this in some of the API and scripting boot camps. Client tool help is going to give you a list of functional commands for the command line. Client tool help-C allows you to then turn around and get more details on an individual command like control.setting.list, which will give you the syntax for pulling your backup manager settings. Setting list, selection list, schedule list, backup start, status.get. All of these are ones that you can utilize in order to pull or look at information on what's running behind the scenes. We can turn around and you do setting.add, setting.modify, selection.add, selection.modify, things like that in order to change your selections, your configurations. These client tool commands can be used post-installation to additionally modify your configuration. You want to come in and set up some unique selections outside of a profile, set up a particular email schedule or frequency, do custom schedules. All of that can be done via this command line tool. Here I'm talking about the Windows version of client tool. I do have corresponding Mac and Linux client tool versions as well that can be utilized. That link up here will give you more details on those paths as well. Checking Q&A, I think I'm actually doing pretty good here. So let's go ahead and move on. I've got a couple more things to wrap up before we close out for the day. We're just right about the top of the hour, so we're doing good. Upcoming training and events. All of my corresponding head nerds do put together a pretty full calendar of upcoming events and trainings. We will all be at the upcoming Empower partner event in Berlin, Germany in early April as well, doing some certifications, some live boot camps and live trainings. The QR code here will get you the most recent set of head nerd events. That'll be our office hours, our boot camps, and any type of on-site events that we are going to be at. In addition to that, each of the head nerds does put out a regular blog series, which is going to talk through their particular domain of expertise, give you common tips, tricks, or in the case of, say, Lewis Pope, our head security nerd, you'll get visibility into what's happening with, say, Microsoft Patch Tuesday, and different burn downs and or severities of those patches and the vulnerabilities. Do want to share with you one of our live master classes, upcoming master class on Master of Ransomware Response, and I believe there's actually a Master of Disaster Recovery Master of Disaster Recovery masterclass coming out this week or next. These are going to be 1-hour sessions taking you through mock recovery environments, mock ransomware environments, helping you understand what to do when disaster strikes. And then finally, as I promised, if you would like to schedule some time with me from a head nerd perspective, this QR code is going to give you my calendar out about 6 to 8 weeks. You will see some availability here to correspond with different time zones. Feel free to book a time slot that works for you, and then let me know your company name and what it is we want to talk about. So just a quick short sentence or two on topic so I can come prepared for the particular meeting. If it's a support case you'd like some additional insight or visibility into, if it's a feature or a function or upcoming release, something you heard about in office hours, a leftover from a boot camp, any of those kind of things are welcome. I will ask though, if you do have a critical restore type of situation, server down, technician on site, this is not a particular support queue, as my next availability could be out several weeks. Do utilize the critical restore and or support methodologies if you do have a system that is giving you problems, that is not backing up, is not restoring. If you'd like to include me in on a support ticket for visibility or awareness though, feel free to grab my email address from GoToWebinar and you can add me into any support ticket that you guys open up. Once you get the ticket in your email, reply all back to that, add me into the CC, and make a quick note, adding Eric for visibility, and I'll be happy to take a look at that one and or help with escalation. So with that, guys, I think that's all I've got today. Hopefully this was a valuable session for you, seeing how the deployment methodologies are changing over time. Continue to check out the various scripts, cookbooks, and our developer page for upcoming and updated scripts, both from a deployment perspective as well as reporting, monitoring, and billing. I've got a quick poll to wrap this up today, and I'll let you get back to it. Let's see. Launch. How valuable? There we go. So this is where I sing for my supper a little bit. How valuable did you find today's session on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being least valuable, 5 being most valuable. Feel free to drop any questions, comments, or constructive criticism or feedback into the question section if there's something you'd like to see in an upcoming future boot camp or an office hours session. I do maintain this slide deck. I have it. If anybody would like the slide deck, I'd be more than happy to get it out to you. Just drop me a quick note, comment in the question section or something of that nature. I do have most of this data also in a blog article or spreadsheet or Word document as well, if you'd prefer it just for reference purposes. Okay. So we are at about 80% voted. We'll go ahead and close that out. Thank you so much for that, guys. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you for the comments in the question section. That's always great. I'll read through those, see if there's something we can get into an upcoming boot camp. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you in a future upcoming boot camp, office hours, or hopefully face-to-face at an upcoming Enable event. Take care and have a great day, guys.